Hey there, welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. I'm the mom and I do the movie reviews. And my goal is to give you the heads up on filmmaking quality and content so you can decide whether or not you want to watch a particular film. So today, that particular film I'm reviewing is called The Good Half. This dramedy about grief is now playing in theaters. The movie is rated R, basically because of profanity. It's an hour and 36 minutes, and my overall movie review mom grade is an A. I thought it was really well done. So first I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell, and then I'll point out things I like, things I didn't like. I'll offer tips for parents, themes worth talking about, funny lines, interesting lines, and we'll finish up with movies that are recommended that are similar that I think you might also really like. All right, so let's dive in. In a nutshell, the story is about a young man who returns home to Cleveland for his mother's funeral. Once there, he forges new relationships while healing old ones before confronting his problems and trying to truly face his own grief. The film was directed by Robert Schwartzman. Writing credits go to Brett Ryland. I had to say goodbye to three of my parents in 3 months last year. So this movie kind of hit me hard with all of the funeral and estate decisions that needed to be made. It was like we really didn't even have time to grieve. Everything happened so fast, one after the other. And just when I think I'm doing well, the tears come again. That grieving process is no joke. And we all grieve differently and take different amounts of time to emotionally respond to what happened. And I think the movie illustrated that very well. Other things that the movie illustrated well, the other themes are complicated family dynamics, death and grief, terminal illnesses, relationships, and how to console a loved one. So, quick tips for parents. I think kids are going to be really bored. It's mostly adults talking. There is profanity, including F bombs, and the mother constantly steals things from restaurants. So she's not exactly the best role model, but she's charming, and that's part of the relationship that this son has with his mother who just passed. So there's a long list of things, obviously, that I really liked about this movie. First of all, congratulations to Nick Jonas. He did a really great job showing emotional range, and we even get to hear him sing a little bit. Elizabeth Shue is in the cast, and she looks amazing. When is she going to start aging? Seriously. Everyone in the cast did a fantastic job, including Brittany Snow. I absolutely love her in the Pitch Perfect franchise. That's one of my guilty pleasure go-to movies whenever I'm feeling down. Also in the cast are Matt Walsh, David Arquette, Steve Park, and Alexandra Shipp. Everybody was great. The dialogue is witty and entertaining. The title is perfect as it refers to life with a loved one before they died, the good half, and wondering if life will ever feel the same again afterwards, the bad half. However, there's also another layer of the title, and that is how the daughter is talking to her brother, and she says how he got the good half of the mother because he was the favorite. And then the other child who's left out of that special relationship feels like they got the bad half. And I know a lot of us feel that way when it's revealed that we're not the favorite, or if you've never been told that you're the favorite, or that you are the favorite, then you know that the siblings are not the favorite. You know what I mean? There's a timeline that jumps back and forth in the film. It slowly shows us the tender relationship between the mother and son. We feel like we knew her so much better than the priest who delivers her eulogy at the funeral. Fun fact, while the story takes place in Cleveland, Ohio, the movie was actually filmed in New Jersey and parts of it were done in Los Angeles. The movie doesn't actually end with everything tied up in a neat bow, but it does offer hope. A friend of mine just recently had to say goodbye to her dying mother. She shared with me that she is really having trouble adjusting to the new normal. And I told her that new normal will never feel normal. I think of my parents every day. Tears still flow, as I mentioned. And I see them in the mirror more and more as I'm aging. So I think of them all the time, but there still is a feeling of hope. And the movie illustrates that perfectly. I believe as a Christian, I will see them again. And I hope that if you have lost someone, that you have that peace and that comfort. So on the list of things that I didn't like, I only wrote down one thing because obviously I enjoyed the movie. The subject matter is dark and depressing. It's about death, losing a loved one, and not everybody is going to be up for watching this. And if you've lost somebody recently, it might be too soon to watch this film. So whenever I watch movies, I write down funny lines and interesting lines simply so I can share them with you so you can get a taste for the dialogue and the script writing quality. I have a bunch of them, and so you can see all of them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com, but I'll share some of them with you right now. So there were a couple of lines that just made me grin, and there's this conversation between Alexandra Shipp's character and Nick Jonas's character when they first meet. Anyway, she's talking about a 90s movie and that the plane ride reminded her of. And then she said, every action movie from the 90s is a great film, and which is true. Well, maybe not entirely, but I love those movies. I love that era. In another conversation she has with him about movies, she compares something to Scarface. And then, it's kind of a serious comment, but then he says to her, "Sick Scarface reference." And I thought these kids are too young to remember some of those 90s movies. Anyway, and another interesting conversation was when Nick Jonas, who was very sarcastic and cynical about this whole funeral affair because he doesn't really have much say in any of it. It's his stepfather, who he thinks is a jerk, who's planning this funeral and is turning it into a disaster. And so he says to his stepdad, he says, "You have a casket budget?" And the stepdad, who's played by David Arquette, says, "Yeah." And then so Nick Jonas says, "Maybe they have certified pre-owned caskets, just like the new ones, but a little bit cheaper," And he says a lot of snarky things like that. And the siblings just sort of roll their eyes about this stepfather, and I thought that was interesting. And then they're in the casket store section of the funeral home, and so again, Nick Jonas says, "Oh, I like the idea of a casket with flames on it," because he shows them a casket that has flames on it. And he says, "It really sends a solid message to your loved one where you think they're headed." And I was just like, who would put flames on a casket? That is weird. So then on the interesting lines that I heard that I wrote down, there's a conversation between the mom, who's played by Elizabeth Shue, and her son, who's played by Nick Jonas. And he just says, "Oh man, the stepdad, he's a tool. You got to divorce him." And she's like, "What's the alternative? I'm going to be a then twice divorced 56-year-old lady living in Cleveland. That's the saddest sentence I've ever said." And then the son says, "Yeah, the only sad part about that statement is you're living in Cleveland." And I thought that was funny. The land of Cleve. Anyway, and then Ren is mourning and grieving in his own way, but it doesn't look like the way his sister is. And so she criticizes him for that. And he says, "Just because you can't see it doesn't mean I'm not doing it." And I thought that was a really mature thing for him to say to her, because he was grieving and mourning, even if he didn't himself quite recognize it in the very beginning. And then another conversation that Alexandra Shipp and Nick Jonas had was throughout the whole time when she finds out that he's attending his mother's funeral and she wants to go there to support him, she's always saying, "How are you doing? How are you feeling?" And he's like, "I'm good, I'm fine." And then finally, towards the very end of the movie, she's like, "Are you okay?" And he says, "No, but I will be." And I loved that mature response as well, because there's nobody who can be fine attending their mother's funeral. It's horrible, and going through that whole process. All right, now I want to give you some recommendations for films that are sort of similar, or at least involve dying, death, grief, loss, and that kind of stuff. One is a film that I just reviewed called A Good Enough Day. And it's from the man's perspective who has a terminal illness and the regrets that he has in life and how he's trying to survive and finish his life on a good term. I thought it was really well done. I'll queue up my review of that one so you can watch that and see if that's something that you want to watch. Another one is called Elizabethtown, and it's actually similar in that somebody's going to the funeral of their parent and they happen to meet this love interest, and that helps to start conversations about love and loss and grief and healing and all of that. And then another similar one is Charlie St. Cloud. Now, that's an old one. Actually, Elizabethtown is clear back from 2005, and Charlie St. Cloud is from 2010. So I don't know if you've seen those two older ones, but I highly recommend them. Now, all of those links are in the description below. They're actually Amazon affiliate links. So if you click on them, it doesn't cost you any more to watch them or buy them or rent them. But Amazon will give me a few pretty pennies to thank me for telling you about them. And I really did like them. So for what that's worth. When you get a minute, run and visit me on all the social media platforms. I'm everywhere. And thank you so much for sticking around to the bitter end. Hopefully it wasn't too bitter. Have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.